Hey, good evening, everyone. Another Tuesday evening. Good to see everyone this evening. Let's wait to see what's happening with my Facebook. Let's have a look. It doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. Okay, it doesn't seem to be happening at the moment, but I'm going to crack on, continue anyway. So, yeah, we're looking at DARVO. We've been looking at the last couple of weeks. I met somebody today and he asked me, have you finished with moral injury? I said, no, not stopped it at all. Let's have a look. Can't see anything here. Let's have a look here. What's happening? Oh, here we go. Go live. Here we go. Yeah. He asked me if I'd stopped doing the moral injury because he'd learned so much. I said, no. One of the things about studying, of course, is that when you start studying it kind of develops into other areas as well. So this is what happened. Looking at there, you've just caught up on Facebook. So thank you very much indeed. If you're there, just send me a note just to say that that I can see you. That'd be really good. Yeah, just to say another Tuesday evening. Also looking at DARVO, and the DARVO stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. It's a way of silencing people. It's a way of pushing people in the dark. It is really a form of moral injury. I think I don't know if anybody's done any work looking at the two, but certainly there's lots of stuff. So this evening, wherever you are, looking at reversing. Thank you, reversing DARVO. Also looking at a little bit of narcissistic behavior and looking at some. So in the next 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, looking at a way in which we can deal with ourselves. So also to protect ourselves so we're not too hindered or harmed by DARVO or in fact moral injury. So the thing is that once you've been exposed to this thing called DARVO for the first time, you will invariably fall foul of it because in a sense it catches you off guard. And you really don't know what's happening. But I've always said, if you mess up the first time, it's a benchmark to ensure that it doesn't happen again. The danger, of course, is this is what happens to some people. You see the dynamics of the group. You go to another company. It's great. Change of management. And my gosh, you've seen the same behavior again. So you got the choice. You can either then move to somewhere else, go into a free consultation with me. We go into it with more depth. We can only do so much here, but if you're interested, right at the end there'll be a short announcement. If you want to know more, you want to learn more skills, and you want to have more depth of this understanding because you've been caught out a couple of times, contact me for a free consultation, and we can take it from there. So then those of you who have read my newsletter, you know in the previous one I said what DARVO is. So DARVO, remember, it's deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. It's this whole idea when you've reported something and you're told there's going to be an investigation. You then turn up for the findings and you realize the person who committed the offence or the unprofessional behaviour or unethical behaviour, he's exonerated or she's exonerated, and you are now targeted. You are the one that's targeted. What you said is denied, you're then attacked, and then you now become the offender, and the person who committed the crime, so to speak, is now the victim. So one of the things that happens, of course, is this whole thing around gaslighting that takes place in the workplace. So this whole thing about DARVO, it's deceitful, it's manipulating, and I'd like to think naively that when we go to workplaces, there's a level of trust. And part of the problem why we are hurt so much is that we invest so much of our time, energy, commitment, and trust in an organization, in people, and then when all that goes pear-shaped, it really wounds us significantly. Good evening, Sonia, and thanks for my sound engineer. I know that it's on Facebook and I can see the interaction. So please, as you're watching this, if you're on LinkedIn and YouTube and you want to, make a comment relevant to the topic this evening or ask a question, please do. Anything that's asked out which is not part of this, please contact me outside of the broadcast, and I'm more than happy to respond. However, if people are just making inane comments, stupid comments, I don't respond. I don't respond at all, because there's no need. There's no need for it. So one of the things I want to point out, though, and I won't be able to spend too much on it this evening, that a couple of contributors contacted me to say, as much as we talk about narcissists, that narcissists do have their place. Narcissists, in terms of some of their behavior traits, are really, really good in those critical leadership positions where decisions have to be made. And there's a whole series of that. Again, I'll be exploring some of that as we look in terms of the consultation. My concern, though, is the damage that's inflicted on employees, to the point where these individuals they're not even aware, or they know some of the damage that they're doing to people. That's my concern, and working with individuals. But narcissists do have their place as sometimes brilliant leaders, but there's a downside to their brilliance. Okay, so as I said before, my concern is about the impact it has on people. One of the things that you have to contend with in this whole thing around DARVO is gaslighting. Talking to somebody today, and he realized what was happening on, and people realize what's happening on. So So gaslighting is a form of psychological and emotional abuse. Moral injury is a form of abuse. DARVO is a form of abuse. We don't want to use those languages, but that's what's really taking place. So DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. It's a form of psychological emotional abuse. When a person aims to sow seeds of doubt, and you become targeted by the individual to the point there's this kind of real cunning attempt to cause you to question your perception, reality, and in some cases your sanity. It's really deceptive. In one sense, it's clever, but it's really, really destructive. So there's this idea to get you to question, did I really say that? Oh, well, maybe I was wrong. So you start to question your doubt, and I'll say you start to question yourself, and I'll say a little bit more later on how dangerous this behavior can be. The whole thing about reversing life's dilemmas, in fact, there's lots of things you can't reverse. You might be able to reduce the symptoms. One of the things, it occurred to me in counseling, I was working with somebody quite some time ago now, quite a few years ago, who suffered with fibromyalgia. It's a real a painful syndrome that affects the whole of the body. And this person was having a real kind of difficult time. And I remember thinking about this. There was a session coming up, and I was thinking, I wonder if you can reverse it. You know, the body's inflamed, and the person has experienced a lot of pain in the joints and so forth. And I thought to myself, I wonder whether you could reverse it. So went online and looked at some stuff on YouTube, and sure enough, with medication and dietary changes and lifestyle changes and so forth, not that it's reversed, but the symptoms are minimized. And I suggested to this person, you know, have a look at this, tell me what you think, and let's have a conversation around how you might be able to manage your symptoms. Now, one of the things, of course, the person was on medication, and in the newsletter I've said, and I've never, ever even hinted at anybody not to take the tablets or stop taking them. If you're going to do that, you really must seek medical advice. And apart from that, you know, I could be legally comparable. Oh, good evening, Dane. Okay, all right. Well, sometimes yeah, exercise is really good. And I think one of the things that somebody contacted me, thank you for that, it's just reminded me of something. Somebody contacted me during the week, and I don't think they were aware of this this broadcast, but one of the things that they said is something I've been mindful of, and I was so glad for the reminder. These sessions are not for a dopamine hit. These sessions really is to take something and put it into practice. And I know that some of you are. I've known people who've left jobs, who've ended relationships, they've done something differently. So the idea is, hints and tips is for action. Of course, this is no substitute to see a psychologist, psychotherapist, a counselor, your GP, a coach, lifestyle coach, anything that can develop you, that you can move forward in your life in a consistent way. These are just half-hour sessions, and even some of the training that I've done, and over the years I've done 2-hour sessions and half day. I've always questioned those things. Those type of training don't change behavior. What changes behavior is training over an extended period of time and self-reflection and so forth. Really, really important. So let me just go here on my StreamYard for a moment. I don't think you can see it on Facebook at all. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, no, you can't see on Facebook at all, but my information, certainly if you want to message me, as people have done, just contact me on Messenger, and I'm able to contact you as soon as possible. Okay, so gaslight, the whole thing about gaslighting, it's a way of causing you to doubt your own mind, and that's really serious. And as I said, I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. So we can't really reverse things, but I said to this person, have you thought about, reverse fibromyalgia? And the person went ahead, looked at some stuff, tried it, and it really, really worked. And after a short space of time, she said, Delroy, you know what? I'm in a better place now. I'm feeling a lot better. I've done this, I've done that, and this is over quite a few weeks. Yeah, I'm in a lot better place now. And did counselling. She was on a different pathway just by this idea of reversing fibromyalgia. So people have reversed diabetes through diet and all the rest of it. So there's many things you can't reverse, but there's some things you can minimize the symptoms, minimize the effect that it's actually having on you. And if we have the opportunity to do that, we must do that as best we can. Okay, just say a little bit more about that. So this whole thing, let me just go back to this whole thing around gaslighting and the kind of behavior that kind of takes place. This, the person quite often, but not always, kind of narcissistic behavior. And I've said in my newsletter what narcissism is. I know that we use the word willy-nilly these days, but years ago you'd never use the word narcissist, but now it's becoming more part of the language. And I always wonder when things become a part of the language whether it kind of loses its meaning. So for example, everybody now is traumatized, and then we're not too sure sometimes what trauma is and so forth, but it's kind of in our language now, isn't it? So some of the things I want to say just about in terms of what some of the tactics of gaslighting is really kind of good to know what some of the tactics are. So misdirection. There's a persistence, denial. Then again, there's a contradiction, lying, and it causes you, and this is really bad, it causes you to distrust yourself. That is not a good place to be, that you distrust yourself. That is not a good place to be at all. So here's some of the gaslighting techniques. Deception. There's lying and deception. So the core component of gaslighting is manipulating or fabricating or distorting the truth. Say some truth, but then it's distorted. And it's said in a way that seems to be so polite and so nice. And then you start to question, did it really happen? Was I seeing things? Did I really say that? Did I really mean it that way? So you start to question and distrust your own stuff, your own self. Blame shifting. Blame shifting is the person who's responsible, who should be taking the decision or the action, then passes the buck on to you. So he or she should be responsible for taking a particular decision or action, and then they're making it out that you're the person who should be doing it. Some leaders do that. They're very incredibly passive. I'm not too sure then if the leader's incredibly passive. You make the decision, which in fact they should be making. And if it goes wrong, they absolve themselves from it, and you're the one carrying the can. Another gaslighting method is evading. Individuals don't answer. They don't answer correctly. They're vague in their responses. They're not true. They're not clear. You're not too sure what they're saying. A lot of flowery language, and you're not too clear what's actually taking place. There's something called love bombing or pretending, and this is really bad. This goes kind of beyond our session this evening, but there's this whole thing where they can get people. So what they do, they pour a load of emotion. They say, "Oh, you're great. You're the greatest thing this company has had. You're so good. The work that you do is absolutely brilliant." And then they do all this type of stuff. And then what happens? You then become bonded to them, and then they can drop you like a hot potato, and you are then in a mess. This whole thing around love bombing or pretending, it's insidious, but these are some of the gaslighting tactics. There's one that I'm just going to touch on. I was quite surprised at this, but it actually takes place. DARVO, echoism, and pseudo identity. This is what happens. So you can imagine DARVO can really impact people's mental health. It can be taken to the point in worst case scenarios that it can lead what psychologists called echoism and pseudo false identity. That is, the victim internalizes the abuse that they're given, and they start to believe that they are the cause and they are responsible for the mistreatment and the abuse. That is not a good place to be at all. When you internalize what's been projected, that you actually believe you are the cause of your mistreatment, you're the reason why you're being treated this way, and it's all your fault. Listen, you only go to work to do your job and then to get the salary at the end of the month. But this is what can happen in the terms of gaslighting and so forth. So this is not something to be kind of messing around with. It's something really, really important. Let me just go back to here. Okay. So please, if you want to add a comment or ask a question, either on LinkedIn or YouTube, please do. I will clock you. And somebody said here, what makes good leaders is influence and credibility. Yeah, absolutely, it does. I don't think that can be shown. That can only be seen on Facebook, but it can't be seen on LinkedIn. And I think at one time you could see it, but I'm not too sure what's happening now. Anyway, reversing DARVO, is it possible? Well, as I said before, you can't really reverse it. Once it's started, it doesn't really stop. But what can you do to protect yourself? That's what I'm really keen on. So what I'm going to be suggesting is some hints and tips that you can do to help yourself. How we're doing for time, just to help yourself in terms of protecting yourself. Some simple strategies. I've used the word dehumanizing because actually it is. If you drive people to a place where they internalize the stuff that you're projecting, and they are questioning their own sanity and their own sense of reality, you've dehumanized them. You've reduced somebody, as I've heard people say, and what it does, it bashes their confidence. And those of us who are really we take pride in our work, we are committed to it, we give of ourselves, we're diligent, and then when we're treated that way, I say to individuals, and I was sharing with a female friend of mine who experienced moral injury, and also this whole thing about DARVO, I said, look, you're not going to get over this overnight. And we're looking at 8-9 months in, and she's still struggling with stuff. You know, she said to me some time ago that life is really tough at the moment. I'm getting comments from individuals, things that they really love, they've had to walk away from it, and maybe after 2 or 3 years they're only getting back to it for the first time, and there's a level of anxiety, there's a level of nervousness. It really does shake you up. And it's something that I think somebody commented that about workplaces and the law, where legal matters will take this thing seriously. Because one of the things that employers have, they have a legal responsibility to ensure that the working environment is safe, not in terms of lighting and desks and machinery, but their employees can work in a place that is psychologically and emotionally safe. They have a legal responsibility. And one of the things that happens to many of us, me included, you're there as an employee and you go there on trust, And if anything happens and it goes pants, you're out on your own. And I've said before, there's three things or two things we need to learn, certainly in England anyway: employment law and policies and procedures of the company. So instead of scrolling on your phone, if you can see in your organization there's some really unprofessional, unethical practices taking place, and you can see what's been done to members of staff, take that as a wake-up call. And it could be you can't leave because you're on an excellent salary, you've got kids, you've got commitments, and it's really difficult for you to find another job what pays. However, what I would say, if it starts to affect your health, you have some serious decisions to make, and nobody else can make them for you. There's no point staying in a place that makes you sick, that you can't function at home, you can't interact with your partner or your children. There's no point whatsoever, even if it means that you can't give them as much if they're going to university and so forth. I'll just tell you a bit of a funny story, but it's true. I can't remember if it was a wedding or a funeral, and I was sitting with a couple, and woman, this was quite a few years ago now, I can't even remember the name, and we got talking. So the husband was a heating and ventilation engineer, very, very good, successful business. And I got talking to his wife, and she said that one of the son, I think the first child went to university. So he phoned her and he says, "Oh, Mum, can I have," quite a few years ago now, "Mum, can I have 30 quid? So she said, "What do you want 30 pounds for?" He said, "I want to go out partying with my friends." She said, "Oh, no, I'm not going to give you any of my money for you to party. If you want to party, go and get yourself a job." And she said all her 3 kids worked their way through university. So there's this whole sense about responsibility, learn about the world of work, all that type of thing, really kind of important. So these are what I'm going to suggest now, just some strategies to help you think how you can deal with DARVO. Remember, employment law, policies and procedures. Instead of scrolling on your phone, spend time with it. If you see things that might be happening in work, it could happen to you. So get yourself prepared. So if it happens, you know how to deal with either moral injury or DARVO. Really, really important. So here are some of the things that you can do. One of the things, of course, educate yourself what DARVO is and the manipulating devices that are used to silence people. Educate yourself. And also something what I want to offer, how we understand how narcissists operate. Now, let me just share another story. This is a true story. Nelson Mandela. He was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey when he was released, and she spoke about how 27 years of incarceration and how did he manage it and all the rest of it. And he said something that really spoke to me. 2 things he said. He said, when I was in prison, he said, I had 2 options, either to hate the oppressor or learn to understand them. And he said, I decided to learn to understand them. And as you know, if you've ever read his story, they were very hateful towards him at the start, but by the end of his time, they were incredibly respectful. He learned how to understand how they operated. Now that takes something. And you might say to me, Delroy, listen, I'm just there to do a job, do the job description, get the money at the end, and I'm off. But sometimes to remain in a work environment, you have to learn how to navigate. The word navigate is to intentionally plot. How are you going to survive this workplace if you don't understand the working and the dynamics of the team or the organization that's taking place? That's really important. So understanding DARVO, understanding narcissists and how they work can help you to maneuver, to navigate yourself if you're ever caught in a meeting where there's a fake investigation and now you're being targeted. DARVO is abuse, and learning about the strategies used by abusers is important. Doing so will help you to spot the signs. And sometimes it happens once, happens twice, happens 3 times. We don't pick up the signs. So learning, getting ourselves educated about it is really, really important. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. You don't need to tell anybody what you're doing, but you're doing it for your own benefit. There's courses that you can do on learning about narcissistic personalities and how you can manage it and so forth. You don't want to become a counselor, but understanding how that type of behavior works is really, really important. One of the things I would suggest as well is to learn about non-violent communication. Non-violent communication is a way of communicating empathy in a conversation. The idea is that there might be conflict, but if you can communicate in a way that introduces empathy, what the idea is that if you can do that, a solution can be found. However, working with narcissists is not that easy. But what a nonverbal communication will help you do is not to demonize them, but to understand their behaviors. So if you demonize people, you then say to yourself, you know, there's no hope. But if you learn to understand their behaviors, it then gives you some insight as to what you can do, how to manage yourself. And if you're in a particular meeting and this starts, you know exactly what to do, how to deal with yourself. One of the things I said last week, that if you're in a meeting and it gets hostile and you remain calm, those type of personality types, they hate it. And somebody contacted me a few days later to say that's his style, and he's really found people that they really do hate the way that they're really kind of blowing the gasket and he's really calm in his response. So non-violent communication is really helpful, not just in DARVO, but even just in ordinary conversation where you see conflict might be brewing, but non-violent communication can be a great way, a great skill to learn to help you navigate conversations better. One of the things, the other thing that's really important, I've said this before, seek a support network. This is the reason why. You can imagine as DARVO begins, it seldom diminishes, it escalates. So you need skills to de-escalate, but this is another reason why you need a support group. Quite often what narcissists do, they will rally the support of other people. So then you're not dealing with an individual, you might be dealing with a whole team of people that then can leave you feeling isolated. So this whole thing about having a support group, if it's inside of work, great, but outside of work, even better, who've got you back, who can help you, a place where you can cry, you can F and Jeff, you can do what you need to do, a safe space where you can hold it together and the space becomes cathartic. So this whole support network is really, really important. Apparently a guy called what's his name, Darian McGee, said that the name that the narcissists get other people to kind of do some of the dirty work, that group of people is called flying monkeys. So they may not even be a part of the original incident that happened, but narcissists can rally people to then focus on you. Then you become the target of a team or a group or a department of people. One of the things I've said before, document, emails, screenshots, any form of correspondence. If there's been a conversation, if there's been a meeting, you respond with an email to say, these are the things that we have covered. Even if the person doesn't respond, you've sent the email. At least there is a trail that if anything happens, you can say, this is what I've done, but there was no response. So that's something that I'd really want to encourage us with. So, summarizing. According to the research, now believe this or not, it's amazing, you know, you start to research, if you do any research, you find things out. The Journal of Aggression, Maltreatment and Trauma. Can you believe there's a journal focusing on aggression, maltreatment and trauma? Your superpower in dealing with DARVO is knowledge. And the word that is used is that if you have knowledge about DARVO, it will result in additional inoculation against it. Listen to the word that's used, inoculation. That's a vaccine. When something deadly, the virus, something probably going to kill the host. But there's an inoculation if you have knowledge that helps you with DARVO. And he goes on to say a little bit more. The best way to deal with DARVO is, first of all, know what it is, how it works, what it relies on, and how to counter it appropriately. And these are some of the steps, and I'll just follow these steps, and I'm gonna finish. Stay safe. Don't antagonize. Don't get into a fisticuff. Narcissists generally like a real kind of public, like a public display, and they can't think of anything better than a public verbal confrontation. And when I pick that up in meetings I've been in, I just don't engage. I keep my voice very calm. I engage with what I need to. Now, in time past, listen, I could give as good as I get. I really could. I'm good with my mouth, and I could give as good as I get, but I was in a leadership position and I had to display something different. So I learned over a period of time, and I had some really good people around me that when I responded, you know, I'd fight fire with fire. And one or two people would say after the meeting, Delroy, you know, that wasn't really too good, you know. No, you got to do a bit better. And so there's some great people who weren't in any leadership position at all, but they kind of mentored me and really helped me to develop. Stay safe, don't antagonize, utilize every bit of support you can get. Don't engage with attacks. You know, it says the person might say something deliberately to goad you, to get you. Don't bite. Don't be a piranha. Don't bite. Don't engage with attacks. Avoid the role reversal, that you're not the victim, you're not the offender. You made a comment, and remember, I said you call a halt, you stick with the facts, and you don't engage with this thing emotionally. Stand your ground, keep your integrity. You don't want to lose. You don't want to leave the meeting feeling that you've really embarrassed yourself. You've carried on really, really badly. Yes, you may be bruised, and I remember talking to some individuals. There were some meetings that I left angry, but I didn't leave ashamed or feeling guilty. I know I stood my corner. I was angry how the meeting went, angry what people had said, but I didn't feel guilty or remorseful or embarrassed or ashamed. So keep your integrity, really important. Maintain your character as well. As difficult as it is, hold your poise. And it could be that, you know, the first, second time it happens, you really do kind of lose it. But the more that this happens, learn how to become aware and in control of your spirit. Try to minimize the impact of other people's opinion on you. This whole thing about love bombing, this whole thing about flying monkeys. People will say things, but don't take it on board. I've said already what psychologists talk about, this pseudo identity, where you're ground down to such a level that you then start to believe you are the cause and you are responsible for the mistreatment, and you deserve the treatment that you're getting. All this I've said, I acknowledge that it's not easy, but it's far easier if you do it in having a support group. So it could be, because nothing worse when you go through a really difficult time and there's nobody to talk to. There's nobody you can bounce ideas off. There's nobody you can cry with. You just go home to an empty flat, empty room. There's nobody. You need people around you. So when you're going through this difficult time, you're not getting the support from work, certainly not from management or leadership. And it's fine. Organizations sending people off for counseling, but sometimes people don't want counseling. What they want to be in the company of people they know, they trust. The trust has been built up over a year, because at the moment they don't trust anybody, because DARVO has really impacted on them in a very negative way. So that's it. So if you want to know more, please feel to contact me for a free consultation. So in terms of what you'll get, there's certainly a more intense outline around moral injury and DARVO. There'll be information more about learning and understanding the ways of narcissistic leaders, how we understand them, the types of narcissism there is, and then what you can do as an employee to navigate and manage yourself more appropriately. And in fact, we all have narcissistic tendencies anyway, but some of us are more extreme than others. So listen, enjoy the rest of your evening. I can't see any questions or any comments. I've seen some from Dane. He's been prolific this evening, very prolific. I can't see anything on YouTube, but I'm sure people will. I know there's one person who doesn't watch it live because it's a different time zone, and he'll send a message later on. But look, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week, and I'll see you next Tuesday as we continue this whole thing about how we manage ourselves in the workplace when things go belly up or pants. So wish you all the best. Take care, and remember, you can't reverse DARVO, but you can protect yourself, and you can navigate things, and you can navigate yourself really, really well. Go well. Take care. Speak to you soon. Okay, thank you, Sonia. Cheers. Thank you. Let's quit there.